Now today we are going to cover distribution protocols and orders. Basically how these two concepts work in OpenSpecimen, and more importantly we'll go over the common parts amongst all the use cases that you guys have shared over time. So these are the primary three topics that we are going to cover. First is how to create a distribution protocol. Second is how to distribute specimens, and we will also go over some additional features. So first of all, what is distribution protocol? So any project or study to which specimens are being distributed, that can be part of a common distribution protocol. Uh, uh, as an example, whenever you have a researcher, fellow researcher, or some vendor to whom you regularly distribute some of the specimens, that can be considered as a distribution protocol. So all the information related to that particular vendor or researcher, that will be pre-configured in the system, and you don't have to enter it every other time when you are distributing the specimens. So distribution protocol primarily have these three concepts. So the first one is protocol details. So it contains information like which institute is going to receive the specimen, who is the principal investigator or the researcher who has requested the specimens, what type of information do you need to capture, what type of files you also need to send. So all such information can be pre-configured, and that comes under protocol details. We'll see a quick demo shortly how this is done. The second part is about checking consents. So whenever, in case if you are documenting consents in OpenSpecimen, and the patient has consented as yes before you distribute the specimen. In case if one or the other participant has said no or has revoked the consent, then in such cases those specimens won't be able you won't be able to distribute those specimens. And thirdly, it is called as services and invoicing. So basically, whenever you send any specimens to a researcher, he might also ask for some additional tests, for example, histology, pathology, and that kind of services, or even DNA extraction and so on. So with that, you also have an option to document these services. You also have an option to generate invoices and download these invoices for your internal purposes. So all these things can be done within OpenSpecimen. The specimens can be distributed multiple times to the same distribution protocol. So as I said, the information comes as a pre-filled form kind of thing, and you can reuse the same distribution protocol again and again. So whatever are your common researchers or distribute or vendors, you can create one distribution protocol for one of them, or one institute, something like that. And order is nothing but the details of each specimen that is distributed. So we will see what is order. But within that, there are two primary areas how you can do that. So first is reserve specimen, and second is directly distribute the specimens. So from one or two of the use cases, I learned that many times researcher requests some specimens, and it takes around 1 to 3 days for internal approval, and then you send it to internal labs and then proceed. So in such cases, all the specimens that are supposed to be distributed, they can be reserved. So no other person or no other technician mistakenly distributes those specimens. So for that, you have an option called as reserved. And orders is nothing but actual distribution of specimens. So now we'll jump to a quick demo. So overall, this distribution process, that is, there are two parts to it. So the first part is uh, selecting the right specimens for distribution. So that is first part, and second part is how to distribute. So today we are going to focus on how to distribute, and additionally in the process I will also help you with few things on how to identify which specimens to distribute. So this is my the cards is one of the options which you can use. So let us take uh, some example sessions one by one. So for example, uh, I have a list of specimens. Suppose I have a list of specimens which I need to create. Sorry, I'm not using reusing the one. I'm just trying to create one new. Yeah. Now, whenever I'm creating a card, I can share it across users. So basically, there was one request where the two institutes or two sites, they share some samples before distribution. So in that case, all the users who are part of both the institutes can be added into this, so that it can be shared between myself and one of the other members like Brandon or somebody like Dr. Harris, something like that. So that is how you can share it with users. Also in OpenSpecimen, you have a feature called as user groups. We have covered that earlier, but within user groups, you can select which users can see this card. So basically, this is how it really works, and you can now. I'm just copying some 4 or 5 specimen labels. It is 3, I guess. So when I know the specimen labels, I can just scan the labels or enter whatever barcodes I have and everything. And if I select create, it will show me all the 3 specimens are already part of this cart. Now suppose I want to distribute these 3 specimens, or firstly, suppose I have received the request and now I have added this to my cart, and now I have shared this cart with my supervisor or with the committee who is going to approve whether these specimens can be distributed or not. So suppose I just want to reserve this specimen. So I can do this. I will select all 3 of them. I will go into actions. I will click on distribute. Within distribute, I am just choosing one training protocol which I have pre-configured, and I'm not going to remove it from the cart, but I'm just going to hit reserve. So now I will open one specimen and show how it looks. So if I see the specimen overview page, you will see a status called as reserved appear at the header. From the activity, you can see I have created a reserved event. If I click, I will know for which distribution protocol this particular specimen is reserved. So this is how this reserve feature works. So in case if I try to distribute it to some other collection distribution protocol, let's say distribution protocol 2, then system will not allow me to do so because this is reserved for distribution training collection protocol. So now I just received the approval from my ethical committee, and I can select this. I can click on actions and distribute. So again, I'm going to choose this protocol, and I don't want to see this specimen again in this cart. So I'm just selecting distributed specimen. This is remove from cart. So many times what happens is some people reprint the label or print the distribution label. In those cases, you can select yes to print the labels, but that is a thing for another time. Now I am going to distribute it. So if you select the drop down arrow, there are two options. One is distribute now and one is add more details. Distribute now is one click distribution of specimens. So you don't have to really do anything. It will be distributed, but you won't be able to add any other details. I will click on add more details for this demo purpose. Now, if you see, majority of the information, like what was the uh, uh, when exactly I am going to distribute this order, what was the receiving institute or the institute which requested the specimen, which is the receiving site, who requested, and all such information is already present over here. What is the date? In case if you send it via FedEx or some kind of courier, you also have an option to add a tracking URL. You can mention any comments like test sender comments, something like this. And this is custom fields that I have just configured for this demo purpose. I will show how it looks in the configuration, but for example, I think one or two groups mentioned that they uh, they distribute the tissue blocks, and they needs to be first sent to lab. They needs to be checked for pathology, and they needs to be in status of acceptable or something like that. So these fields and these values are configurable. In case if you want, you can also choose a document to attach, something like a PDF document or a docs document or a zip, something like that. So you can add any of them over here, and once you do that, you can click on distribute. So now if you see, my order is created with the timestamp when it was done, and the name automatically is pulled like this with the timestamp. You can see the receiving institute, requester, the date when it was distributed, who distributed, and any of the custom fields that you mentioned along with the sender comments. Now, which specimens were sent? So that can be seen from this slide, this tab. It is a second tab over here that is called a specimen. So you can see list of all specimens that are sent. So this is currently in status of distributed and closed. So let us see one specimen how it looks. See, so for this aliquot, you will see the status as distributed, and additionally, you will see that there are two events that are created. The first event is disposal. The second event is distributed. Now, most probably, your specimens will already be stored in one or the other container location, example given within one box. So that location is now freed. So for that, one transfer event is also added. So firstly, the specimen is transferred from the box and outside. So if I select this, you will see from this particular location, it is now not stored. So it has gone out. Then it adds a disposal event. That means the specimen are distributed and the status of the aliquot is closed. And the distribution event, where it will show as part of which order this specimen was distributed, for which distribution protocol, who was the requester, what quantity, and all such things. So this is how this overall distribution process works. Any questions until now? Okay, so this is how the specimens can be reserved and distributed. Now let us see the other options, how or what you can do via OpenSpecimen. Currently, I am not really covering the reporting module from OpenSpecimen. So there is something called as queries in OpenSpecimen. So for today's demo purpose, I have just created one query just for uh, just as an example how it should look. So suppose you document clinical diagnosis for every specimen or every visit of a participant, so that you know that there is a tumor tissue, or the person with the diagnosis of XYZ, let's say some kind of leukemia or sarcoma, their pathological status is benign, malignant, all such things can be configured to be pulled over here. So based on filters, you can choose what is the right name, or what kind of information you want to filter on. Additionally, currently, because it is a training collection protocol, the no diagnosis is selected, but otherwise you will see list of all diagnoses available within your selected parameters. In our next training session, we are going to cover in great details how this queries is going to work, but this is just for your just as an example. Now whatever values you have, like donor ID in your legacy system, which is very similar to MRN, or even participant specific PPID, so that is participant protocol identifier. So here you can add comma separated values in case if you receive request something like these are the donor IDs for which I need 11 LE code, something like that. So for that, you can select something like this. I'm just choosing one MRN just for demo purpose. So if you see, I can now get just one participant, one visit with 15 specimens. I can still filter it based on clinical status, based on diagnosis, based on specimen type, based on whether it is a primary specimen, derivative or aliquot. All such filters can be added. But ultimately, suppose you want to distribute these two specimens, you can select multiple records, click on actions, click on add to cart. I'm just adding it to, again, distribution training cart. The specimens are added to the cart. Now the next steps that you already know, what you need to do from carts. So this is another way of selecting how the specimens can be selected. So see this, the two specimens that we just added, they appear over here. Now let us take one small example that I also want to see child specimen of this. I am just going to click select include child specimens. See all the child specimens for the selected primary specimen or derivative, they appear over here. Now I can choose to select 2, 3 and distribute and that kind of stuff. So I think this is how ultimately this is the place, that is cards, where you need to put all your specimens. They can be reserved or distributed right away. So this is the area from where you can uh, distribute all the specimens, and these columns are configurable for you. So you can choose which columns to see across the organization, and those columns can be seen over here. Any questions until now? At any point of time, feel free to stop me if you come across any questions. So this is one area. So now we have seen two options. Basically, ones where you already know the specimen labels. Second, you have to query based on clinical diagnosis or participant or donor ID or MRN, PPID. So these are the two primary ways to come over here. Now let us assume, now I'm just going into another cart. Now let us just assume I have one tissue sample with me. I think there was one request. Sorry, I'm really bad at keeping names, but there was some request that you have tissue blocks with you, and whenever you have tissue blocks, what you do is you send it to pathology, make aliquots of this particular block, and then distribute the aliquots itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add it to cart. I'm just refreshing it now. Right. So let us assume a real life use case that you have, let's say, one fixed tissue block, and that is weighing 15 grams. And I'm now going to, I have sent it to lab, tested their pathology, histology, whatever you want to do. They have done the H&E staining and all available things in lab. And ultimately, you come to a conclusion that I need to create 3 aliquots of this block or 3 slices and send it across. What I'm going to do is select, click on actions, click on create aliquot. Uh, all these things are now we are doing from within the cart. Create aliquot. I want, let's say, 5 slices of 1 gram each, but I don't want to close my parent specimen because some quantity is still remaining on the block. So I'm unchecking this close parent checkbox. Once I do that, I will click on next. See, my all 5 aliquots are now created with 1 gram quantity each, and they are automatically assigned to the next available position. I will click on submit. Now from more, I am going to include child specimens. So you will see all 5 aliquots are now here. I am going to select all 5 aliquots and check the new lineage. So all 5 are my tissue slices or aliquots of fixed tissue block. I can distribute it as a regular distribution protocol. So basically, now once I distribute all my aliquots, I also don't want to see my primary specimen or the primary tissue block that I had. So I am just going to select all specimens so that my cart will be removed. Just as an observation, the primary specimen, which was earlier 15 gram, because we created 5 1 gram aliquots, now the quantity is shown as 10 gram because 5 gram is already utilized. So I can utilize, I can distribute it from here. I can select this similar to the previous thing. I can either reserve, I can print label, I can distribute now or add more details. Suppose within add more details, because I have a mandatory field, I cannot distribute it right away because this field is mandatory. Now this is something interesting. So suppose you come to this screen. When I select next, you come to this screen. Now instead of 1 gram, I don't want to do 1 gram. I want to do 0.8 gram. So all such changes can be done over here. You can mention any cost if you want to generate invoices. In case if you still want to add more aliquots or more specimens, you can still scan them from here and click on add. Now all these specimens say that my parent should be closed or my aliquot will be distributed and closed. Earlier what we saw is two events were created. One was disposal and one was distributed. So now I am unchecking these all. So let us see what it does. Okay. Suppose I want to print labels. Again, I have an option to print. You can default everything and all such things are doable. Now let's say distribute. Now my order is already executed. My current date and time is appearing over here. Now let us see what happens to the aliquots. Now see this. My my specimen, what I distributed, it just created one distributed event. However, the status is marked as available. Why? Because I didn't close the specimen. Now I had changed the quantity from 1 gram to zero point 0.8 gram. So my available quantity is now calculated as 0.2 grams. Freeze thaw cycle is obviously increased by 1. So that is how the system is designed. And if I select the second one, it will still show available quantity as 0, and it will still show as available because I have just added the distribution event, and I just unchecked the close specimen checkbox. So this is how this partial distribution works. So in case if you are distributing partial quantity of any of the aliquots, you can simply choose to not close the aliquot which you have distributed. So this is the primary gist of overall distribution. Any questions until here? Just let me know. Okay. Now suppose I'm doing something, but I mistakenly added one aliquot. I didn't really distributed this particular specimen. So I can from the orders page, I can select any of them. I'm just choosing the latest one. I go to specimens. From the specimens, I don't want to distribute this one because that was entered in error. I can simply select that and delete. Now what happens over here? See this. My available quantity is back to 1 gram. My freeze thaw cycle is obviously when it was incremented, that is incremented. The location appears based on the auto location rules, and the event, the distribution event that was added, that is now removed. So this is how, in case if you have entered anything in error, that can be undone for specific specimen within the order. Now suppose I one complete order. I don't want to see this complete order. That entire order was mistakenly executed. Ideally, I just was trying to reserve the specimen, but I mistakenly executed the order. In such cases, you also have an option to delete the entire order, and the order will be deleted. So this is how this undo distribution kind of thing works. Now let us see of some additional information over here. So the first one is specimens, that whatever specimens you added that appear under this tab. There is one more. This I have created for a demo purpose. This is the invoices. So for example, if I had added two services like histology testing and other lab tests, all the costs that are associated with them, they will appear under invoice. Now you have an option to download the invoice, and you also have an option to download the report of the distributed order. So let us see how it looks. So see this. So this is how the invoice will look like. So which was the distribution order, which was the protocol, when was the when it was requested, which was the receiving site, and all such information that we have added earlier that will appear over here, and all the services and their associated costs, they will appear over here. And also you will see a list of all specimen labels and their specimen types, their other information like pathology status, anatomic site, laterality. All such information can be pulled into this. So this is how the invoicing report looks like. And additionally, there is a distribution report. So I will also show that. The details of how to configure these reports, what fields are editable, what are not, what kind of information is configurable, all such things we will cover in the reporting module. But again, this is how you will see the report, that from which collection protocol, from which visit, from which specimens these were distributed, and for which quantity. So all such things can be seen in this report. So these two are detailed reports, and they are configurable too. So you can decide what you want to see on these reports when you distribute any specific specimens. Any questions until here? Otherwise, we'll move to how to create distribution protocols. Any questions? Okay. So let us. Sorry, I've actually missed one thing. That is, in case if I send some specimens out of the lab, and let us assume that the lab didn't like one or two specimens, so they just decided to return it to the biobank. So how that can be done is something like this. So from orders page, you have a button called as return specimen. So I can click on return specimen. I can select all the specimens, the names or barcodes, whatever you have, and click on add. You can assign any specific location to it. I'm just putting it into one random freezer, one random box. Submit. So my specimen will be returned to that particular box. And if you see over here, you will see the status as returned. So this is how the return specimen works. And if you enter into the specimen, you will see that the specimen is returned. So many times when things happen that lab didn't, uh, the researchers didn't like the specimen, the quality checks are not appropriate, and they have returned. So in all such cases, the specimens can be returned, and it will result in increase of freeze thaw cycle. So one cycle is added because it was sent out of the lab and then returned. And and one additional event: who did it, what quantity it returned, who returned, and all such information will appear on appear for your specimen. Now there, I think I missed one another case where you temporarily store specimens inside a box. You set it aside, and then ultimately you send that to researchers or PI of the protocol. I think that was coming from Brandon. I forgot, but that I think that was coming from Brandon. So let us assume for a week's time you are storing all your serums within one particular box. You know that particular box name. So in such cases, all you need to do is from your global search box, search the unique name of container, select over here, it will drive you to the container. I'm just selecting the specimens tab. So you will see all the specimens available over here within this particular box. So you can select and choose to add it to cart, and then distribute or then reserve whatever things you want. Otherwise, you also have an option to distribute it directly. So whenever you have a cases where you are going to send some temporary boxes or something like that, in such cases, this kind of uh, uh, route comes really handy. So I think I have covered most of the cases that you have shared via email. Let me know if I have missed anything. Okay. So now let us see how this distribution protocol is created and how it functions. So basically, I have created one for this demo purpose, but rather than just reusing that, I will just create a new one so that we get a better idea what needs to be done. So firstly, I need to choose a title. I can use the same as short title. Now the first section, that is receiving institute. Now for this demo purpose, I have created one distribution institute training. So I'm just choosing this one. But in case if you are creating distribution protocols within organization, then your super administrators can select any institute from OpenSpecimen, and they can select it like this. They can choose a receiving site. At times what happens is you can choose a different receiving site or choose a specific coordinator. For example, somebody who works in the researcher's lab, that can be added as a coordinator, and the researcher who is actually receiving the specimen or requesting the specimen, that I am adding as principal investigator or distribution training PI. I have created this contact user for this training purpose. I can add as many coordinators as I want, but that needs to be from this receiving institute. Currently, there is only one, so I'm not choosing that. Apart from that, majority of the times the researchers work with some kind of IRB ID or ethics ID, um, uh, or whatever organizational name you are using. So in such cases, you can enter that IRB ID, grant ID, whatever you have. You can choose the start and end dates wherever applicable. Now, suppose while distributing, you are you need to print new set of labels. So in such cases, you can define a label format. So this label format is very similar to what you have in your collection protocols. So you can define any type of label format. All the supported formats are available on our wiki page or product documentation. Now, if you remember, I had added 3, 4 fields, for example, send to lab, and I had made it mandatory. So all such fields come from a form. So currently I have created one test form for you, that is distribution training. So from this form, I'm just adding it. So whenever I'm distributing, these fields will be shown to me. Now this is order report query and order attachment. So these are the two things that we are going to see next time during the reporting module training. But the simple answer is whatever report that we downloaded, this report, the distribution report that we downloaded, whatever columns that you see over here, that come from this particular query, order report query. So you have an option which query you want, and that way you can define which fields you want to see and that kind of stuff. Additionally, if you want to send email notifications to the receiver or the coordinators, all of them will be notified via email if you select the email notifications as enabled. And this is where you default your own institute from where you are distributing the specimens. Currently, because I have access to the entire environment, it is picking up the wrong institute or any first institute, but you can choose your institute and your site, so it will appear for any and every order that is distributed. I think there was one requirement where somebody mentioned that the distribution happens in collaboration with another institute or another site. So in such cases, you can choose the option as add another. So the specimen is the specimen distribution from both the institutes is recorded. So this is how you can simply create. This is how you can create a distribution protocol. Now there are, if you see, there are few additional tabs that you can see over here. So there is consent. So in case if you have consents configured, you can add the consent statements over here. You can define what type of specimens needs to be distributed via individual distribution protocols. If you have any specific requirements, that can be documented. If you want to add any services which I had added for your demo purpose, that can also be added over here. So all such things are supported. Not that we are going over each one of them as of now, but this is how this entire distribution protocol can be configured. Now, whenever I want to distribute any number of samples to this particular receiving institute, to this particular principal investigator or requester, I can reuse this distribution protocol. So for every requester or every researcher who is going to request specimens, you can create a separate distribution protocol. Okay. So these are the primary topics that I wanted to cover related to distribution. There are one or two other topics. That is, one is related to catalogs. So how individual researchers who do not have access to OpenSpecimen can actually see what specimens you have, actually filter based on some clinical diagnosis or some specific conditions. So that catalog part and the requesting or the querying reporting part, these two things we will be covering in our next training session. So for now, these are the primary topics that I wanted to cover. Let me know if you have any specific questions, any specific feasibility check that you wanted to run through us. Then then the forum is open for discussion. Any questions from anybody? All right. Uh, Brandon, any specific comments specific to all able protocols? Anything that you want to see now? Any such request?
I don't think I have anything extra. I think you covered most of it. So Natalie, Graham, and I will be working on developing our process for the ABLE protocols in the coming week.
Mhm.
So the specifics, if anybody's wondering, those are under development, but we'll be customizing it to our process, and once we go live, we'll have room for adjustment to figure it out as we go along as well.
Sure, sure, sure. And additionally, if you have any specific request where you are still trying to figure out how this can be done, then just send an email and we will be able to help you as soon as we can, and that way it will be a fast forward process. I don't assume that you are going to distribute it from day one, but at least from within the first week, this all these things should be cleared out, and all your end users should be already trained on how to do this. And is there anything specific related to rules that these kind of users are not supposed to distribute or something like that from your side?
Nothing in particular that I can think of along those lines as far as
Mhm.
restrictions. Yeah, it's mostly just carrying out the requests that we were sent.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Uh, so that is one part, and secondly, I think there was one request where the cart needs to be shared between the institutes. So I don't remember whose request was that. Uh,
Yeah, so the one I was thinking of for that one was if we have another investigator, so it kind of goes into the catalog thing you said, but there might be an investigator that has access to OpenSpecimen, in which case they could pick their own specific specimens that they want to pull and then send it to us, and then we could just pretty much pull those and ship it based on that request.
yes, it is doable. So that feature is called as catalog feature in OpenSpecimen, and that will be covered with the reporting module, because those two modules are very interdependent, and because of that we have uh, kept it for for the next time. But the short answer is yes, that is doable. The requesters can walk through all your specimens, of course the de-identified information only, and they don't really need to log in into system if that is a requirement. Otherwise you can also make it mandatory to log into system and then go through the catalog. So all such things are available and configurable. You will be able to do that on your own going forward. And in our next week's training, we will be covering this part, the reporting and catalogs.
Is that going to be a feature, Brandon, that most people that have collections at Biobank will be able to do? Because that would make technicians work a little bit easier, especially when orders are received, instead of us having to go through and add,
It's
so many
going to
samples.
depend. Some people are not going to be able to handle building their own queries, in which case we'll have to do it for them. So yeah, it'll still be pretty much, it'll be close to where we're doing it now. The ones that are comfortable requesting the specific samples that they know they want, they can do that. The ones that know that they want like one plasma from the first events or that kind of thing, we can build the queries for them because they won't necessarily be familiar with building queries the way that we want. But we'll see how the catalog looks, because it might be able to be usable for more people.
Okay, thank you.
But that is definitely
Yeah.
part of the philosophy of what we want to do, is we want people to be able to look at their own stuff, decide what they want, give us a report. Granted, there's a lot of groups that are not, yes, you're right, Brandon, not as sophisticated, that are not going to be able to do that easily. But like for ones that, do the same thing every week, we'll train them how to do it, and, things like that. Or
Yeah. So the idea is right, and most importantly, we have a specific feature dedicated for this purpose. So we will show it how it looks, and then we can discuss further on that, how it can be made more efficient for your use case. But the simple question.
Yeah, Mike, when you said that we want these guys to be able to go in and, more or less create a distribution list, for us. want to make sure they're working either with a copy or an instance, but we don't want them to be able to screw up the entire database when they make a mistake.
Yes, absolutely. There's going to be certain
Yeah.
time. I mean, we'll have to figure out how to look at, read-only protocols for some
Yes.
people.
Yeah, because when they
Yeah.
pull something out, and then they don't click,
We don't want
put
them
it
messing
back.
with the database, but we do want them to see updated lists. So they can build their own list and say, here's the ones we want pulled for you.
Yeah. So is it
Yeah.
possible to have them work with a copy?
No, they don't really need to work with the copy.
They have different
But
permissions.
yeah, they will only have read-only permissions, so they can see the specimens, they can filter the specimens, but they cannot edit any information related to specimen.
Well, I'm more worried that they actually move them from one box to another by accident. And we don't know what the box is.
Yeah, they won't have permissions to do any moving or any editing. They can only look
Exactly.
and add things to a list.
So they can see it and they can tell us what they want, but they actually really can't create a distribution list.
Right, as long as we have our permissions set properly
Yeah.
for different users.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the catalog, once we go through the catalog stuff, that'll address this, because that's what that's for, is for creating requests from a query of your samples that's de-identified and stuff.
Okay.
But that is a valid question that you asked, and I'm glad to tell you that it is already considered while we build the catalog feature. So you will see that in the next training session, how it really looks like and how useful that is going to be. Because in that cases, not only you are creating the distribution list, but you also have an option to approve or reject the specific requests that are coming from researchers. So all your workflow around it is already configured in the
So
how that.
where is the audit trail there, in this distribution list? I mean, someone makes a request and, we pick out a sample and then we choose.
That is part of the catalog. That is part of the
That's
catalog.
part of the catalog? All right. I was just wondering if somebody wants to come in and say, you took, sibling 2 out of, parent 1, but sibling 4 out of parent 2. Show me, what you did. And it's all in the catalog afterwards then.
Yeah, you will be able to see all those things.
Okay.
Whatever you need, you can generate reports, you can download the audits, and all such things are already supported by the system.
And so the cost services, that is, I did this thing extra, it's $200. You enter that all in when you're creating the distribution protocol, right?
Yes, yes. So many times what happens is some institutes have internal and external funding. So for example, somebody will say, I want DNA extraction, and that particular biobank is not storing the DNA, but only whole blood in trizol. So in such cases, they can charge the researchers for whatever process they followed. It can also apply for the shipping charges, your histology or quality checks, all such things.
Okay.
So whatever you can decide whether it is internal expenses versus external expenses, but all such things are part and parcel of the services.
All right.
There's a
I think
there's a question in the chat.
yeah. Can I make a distribution protocol not require a pre-entered in investigator? Sometimes there are folks who are from out of state that make really large withdrawals who would not be in the system. So for such purposes, the first answer is no. You cannot create a distribution protocol where the pre-entered investigator is not there. But for such purposes, as you mentioned in the second part, that it is one-time activity or some unknown person who is never going to have access to system. So for such purposes, we have a type of users called as contact user. So all you can do is just create a contact user and assign that contact user as the pre-entered investigator. Does that answer your question? Okay, great. Anything else? Any other question? All right. So one additional request for the next training session. The first part is we already know how your distribution is going to work, and we also have a fair bit of idea how the catalogs should be built. But apart from that, are there any type of reports that you usually generate from the system? If you have any such examples, then you can share that with us, like what you did for the distribution protocols. That way, we will be able to cover most common use cases amongst all.
Sounds good.
Yeah, and that applies not only for able protocols, but also for other protocols and other collection managers too. All right. So I think that should be good for today. Let us meet again next week. And meanwhile, Manuel, I will wait for your email related to requirements of the reporting from OpenSpecimen. Any one or two examples will do. We don't need to cover all the reports in one go, but some one or two example reports, any PDF, any snapshot of your existing report, anything will be helpful.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. Thank you everyone for your time. Thank you for joining.
Thank
See
you.
you
Have a
again
good
next
night.
week.
Thanks.
Bye bye. Good night.